Hello, in this video I will do a TSI practice math exam or what you call TSI represents Texas Successive Initiative Test. Okay, so let's do practice exam one. Okay, question one says Robin records the number of clients that request services during the first 4 days of weeks. If the number of clients that request services on Friday is generally 25% of the total number of clients that arrive Wednesday and Thursday, how many clients are expected on Friday? So what they're saying is on Friday, it's basically 25% of the people on Wednesday and Thursday. That's it. So let's figure out on Wednesday there was a five services, so it's just 25% is the same thing as 0.25. So on Wednesday there was a total of five. Plus 25% of Thursday, and on Thursday there were three services. And when you put it all together, you get 0.25 times 5 is $1.25, and then 0.25 times 3 is 0.75. And put it all together, 1.25 plus 0.75 is 2. So on Friday, there is going to be two services. Okay, that wasn't too bad. It's just, yeah. Question two. A researcher is studying the relationship between exercise habits and weight loss. What type of variable is weight loss in this study? Is it A, discrete, B, categorical, C, interval, or D, continuous? So this is a statistics. Um, I'm gonna say uh you to think. I think it's going to be actually I'm not sure. A researcher studying the relationship between exercise habit and weight loss. What type of variable is weight loss in this study? I'm gonna come back to this because I'm not sure. Yeah, let me come back to this. Let's move on to three. Okay. Question three. 3/7 is the same thing as what? So there are a few problems you can uh disregard. So I'm gonna disregard B. Why can I disregard B? Because 3/14 can never be reduced, right? Three's odd, 14, no. So it will never, if it can't be reduced, that means it'll never make it to 3/7. What about 7/3? I can disregard that one because 7/3 is prime, it can't be reduced. And is obviously 7/3 is not the same thing as 3/7, right? So that leads me up to A or D. So 18 over 42, I believe that could be reduced by what? At least 6, right? So 18 divided by 6 is 3. 42 divided by 6 is 7. So I get 3/7, which is exactly to 3/7. So it looks like choice A would be the correct answer. Okay, this one. To consider your next vacation, you collect the following information: ticket price, type of scenery, temperature, and your friend's advice. Which of the table below best represents a classification of this information? Is it A? It's really hard to see, but I think that's the most I could zoom in. A, where ticket price is quantitative and type of scenery is qualitative, and temperature is quantitative, and friend's advice is qualitative. So what does quantitative and qualitative? Um, quantitative, quantitative is a value that can be measured in a number. So I guess the ticket price is quantitative. So yeah, I would say ticket price is quantitative. And then temperature is a quantitative value, and it's also continuous because it can take on any value. I would say the type of scenery is also quantitative. So which one would that be? Ticket price quantitative, temperature also quantitative, type of scenery. I think I don't think type of scenery is not quantitative, it's qualitative, right? I misspelled that because it can't be measured in a number, right? Also, we said that temperature can be continuous because temperature it can be take on any value. So I think the correct answer will be D. Okay, so for this problem, you need to know that quantitative is a value that can be measured in a number, and qualitative is a va is something that you can't measure in a number, right? Like a type of scenery. So I'm going to say D. Question 5, 21 over 5 times 3 over 7. We are multiplying fractions, and when you multiply fractions, you could just multiply across. So go ahead and multiply across. So what is 21 times 3? It is 63. And then 50 times 7 is 350. Could this be reduced? Probably. Maybe by 7. It's going to be 9. And then 50. Okay. Could this be reduced even more? I don't think so. But do you see in our choices 9 out of 50? No, I don't. So we'll have to go back to your original 63 over 350, which I do see, which is A. So even though you can reduce it, I don't see the reduced answer in the choices. So you'll just have to stick with 63 out of 350. Okay, find tan inverse of square root of 3. Well, what they're really saying is what degree is going to give you a positive square root of 3. So positive square root of 3. So if you recall, tangent is y over x. So so our choices are 30, 150, or 60, or 120 degrees. So what I would do first is figure out which correct quadrant we can use. Could we use quadrant one? Well, let's see. Cosine is positive. Sine is also positive. Could we use quadrant two? Cosine is negative. Sine is positive. Could we use quadrant three? Cosine is negative and sine is, oops, also negative. Could we use quadrant four? Um, Sine is positive and sine is negative. Okay, so can we use quadrant one? Yes, because remember, tangent is y over x. Your x is positive, your y is positive, so a positive or a positive is correct. Can we use quadrant two? No, because it's y over x, so a positive or a negative is not positive, right? Can we use quadrant three? Yes, a negative over a negative is technically positive. Can we use quadrant four? Yes, my y is negative and my x is positive, so yes. Okay, um, yeah, figure this out. So let's try quadrant one. So, uh, it's either 30, 45, or 60, right? So let's look at 30 degrees. What are the coordinates of 30 degrees? It is, I forget, it is, oh, it has an x coordinate of radical 3 over 2 and a y coordinate of 1/2, right? So tangent is y over x. So y over x, so it's going to be 1/2 over square root of 3 over 2. And then as you can see, the 2's cancel, so you're left with 1 over radical 3. And this will never give you positive radical 3 because if you multiply top and bottom by radical 3, yeah, that's not going to work. And I don't think it's going to be 45 because that will always give me 1. So what about 60 degrees? So 60 degrees has an x coordinate of 1/2 and a y coordinate of radical 3 over 2, right? So let's figure that out. So what tangent is y over x, so it's radical 3 over 2 divided by 1/2. As you can see, the 2's cancels, and then you're left with square root of 3. That's the one. So our answer is going to be 60 degrees. Question 7. You decide to run an experiment to identify the effects of road conditions on a car degrade, degradation, and measure the following variables: pothole density, car rust, salt concentration, frequency of necessary repairs, and the temperature. Which of these are independent variables? So independent variables are something you can control. Um, yeah. So is it A, salt, concentration, car rust, frequency of necessary repairs? B, frequency of necessary repairs, car rust? C, uh, pothole density, frequency of necessary repairs, and salt concentration? D, pothole density, salt concentration, and temperature. Do you think? So yes, remember, independent variables are those describing road conditions and that affects the degrading vehicle. So I think it's going to be D. Pothole density, salt concentration, and temperature, because those are independent variables. And yeah, so independent variables are those that are describing road conditions and that affects the degradation of the vehicles. Um, so an example, and you probably remember in linear function, x would be a x would be independent because you can control what x is to get your y, right? So so the end yeah, so the independent variables are those describing the road conditions, right? And then so yeah, and then the effect is or the y value of is the degradation of the vehicles. So I'm going to say D. Okay, question three. We have an order of operation problem. We have 3 times 6 plus 4 parentheses 7 plus 2 all over 2. So if you want to do write out pandas, that's fine. It's basically order of operation pandas. So the P stands for parentheses. Do we have a parentheses? Yes. So what I'm going to do is do what I haven't done, just bring it down. So I haven't done this 3 times 6 yet. And then I'm going to do the parentheses. So 7 plus 2 is 9 all over 2. Okay, so I did my parentheses. Do we have an exponent? No. We have a multiplication. Yes, we have 2. We have 3. This is not 3.6. Don't get that confused. It's actually 3 times 6. So that little dot is a multiplication. So yeah, we have 2. So just go from left to right. So 3 times 6 is 18, plus 9 times 4 is 36, all over 2. Do we have a division? Yes, it is 36 over 2, which is okay. Yeah, we do. 36 over 2 is going to be 18. And then just add them. 18 plus 18 is 36. Okay. Question 9. Convert 50 centimeters to yards. And they give us a hint. 1 inch equals to 2.5 centimeters and 1 yard equals to 3 feet. So we have to do some kind of conversion, stoichiometry. So you've probably done a little bit of that in chemistry, but this is how you do it. So what you do is convert 50 centimeters to yards. So we know that we are given 50 centimeters and then times Um, we're going to put centimeters on the bottom because we want to get rid of the centimeters because when you multiply fractions, you multiply across. So the centimeters disappear. Now, what is the relationship between centimeters and inch? They tell you right here. So you're going to put inch on the top, and then they're saying that for 1 inch, there's 2.54 centimeters. Okay. And then you could put a little invisible one under the 50 if that helps. Then what we want to do is our final units has to be in yards. So I'm going to have to get rid of this inch. So I'm going to put an inch on the denominator because that's the only way. And then maybe I could put yards. Now this is where it could get tricky, where you can make a mistake. It says that 1 yard equals to 3 feet. So 1 yard equals to 3 feet. But we have a problem. We're in inches. So we have to do like a double conversion. So let's convert feet into inches. That's the only way. So 3 feet times and then feet on the bottom and inches on the top, right? So the feet disappear. So we know that for 1 feet, there's 12 inches. And then you just multiply across. So 12 times 3 is 36 inches. So yes, 3 feet is technically 36 inches. So you could put 36 here. And then as you can see, the centimeters disappears, the inches disappears, and your final unit is yards. So that's how you know you did it right. And if you recall, multiplying fractions, all you got to do is multiply across. So 50, so it's 50 times 1 times 1. And then on the bottom, it's 1 times 2.54 times it by 36. Put it all together, 50 times 1 is 50. Excuse me. Hold on. To do one. Okay, much better. Okay, so that's just my writing tablet. Um, on the bottom, what's 1 times 2.5 times 36? It is, just use this calculator. 1 times 2.54 times 36 is 91.44. And then put that in the calculator. So 50 divided by 91.44 is 0.5468. And as you can see, it looks like the best choice, and where our final used will be yards. It looks, as you can see, our best choice will be C because they rounded to decimal, so that's 0.55. There you go. Okay, question 10. So it looks like we have a complex fraction. I know you can't see it. I don't know if you can see it spelled, but it's when the numerator is 2/3 minus 1/6 all over 4/5. So what I would do is this whole thing represents your numerator and this whole thing represents your denominator. So what I would do is simplify the numerator. So what is 2/3 minus 1/6? Well, the LCD is 6, so I'm going to multiply here top and bottom by 2. And then 4 minus 1 is 3. And then on the bottom is your LCD, which is 6, which can be reduced by 3. So that would be 1 over x divided by 3 is 2. And so your numerator simplifies as 1/2 and your denominator is 4/5. So it still looks a bit confusing. So what you could do is figure out your numerator. So this is my numerator, and then this is my denominator, right? So what you want to do is you want to rewrite it as 1/2 divided by 4/5. And then if you recall, when you're dividing fractions, you can cross multiply. So 1 times 5 is 5, and then 2 times 4 is 8. And you get 5/8. So that is letter D. If I'm going too fast, you can always pause the video. But keep in mind we have, for this exam, we have like 48 questions. So I kind of have to speed it up a little bit. So round 1.24453 round to the nearest hundreds. So first locate where the hundreds place in your place. So 4 is technically the hundreds place. And then what you do is look at the neighbor, which is 4. If the neighbor is 5 or beyond, you do have to round. If it's not, you don't have to round. So we don't have to round because 4 is not 5, so it's 1.24. Letter D. Okay, simplify this. So I don't know if you can use a calculator, but I think you could just put that in the calculator. If you want to do it the long way, this goes inside the box, and then this goes outside. So it's really 0.03, and then you have a 10. Then what I would do is line the decimal. You would have to, obviously, you're going to put a 0 here, and then you're going to put an extra 0 above the 3 because 10 is too large for 3, so put a 0, and then put a leading 0 here. And then how many times does 10 go? 33. And that's your answer, 0.003, because there is no remainder.
0.003. So now it's obviously C. Wait, yeah, there's two zeros. You have to include two zeros. Now you don't have to include, this is called a leading zero, so you don't really have to include that. But you do have to include those two zeros, so it is C. Question three, find the solution of the equation. It's real as simple as it looks. It's 7 times 0.21. So if you put that in the calculator, you get 1.47. Convert 3/8 into a percentage. So you could just put that in the calculator, but if you want to do it by hand, that's fine. 3 goes inside, 8 goes outside. You're going to put a decimal after 3 because obviously 8 is too large for 3. And then put a leading zero. Line up the decimal. How many times does 8 come to 30? About 8 times 3 is 24. 8 times 4 is 32. 8 times 3, right? And then 8 times 3 is 24. And then 30 minus 24 is 6. Bring down the 0. How many times does 8 go into 6? Well, 8 times 8 is 64. What's 7 times 7? It's 56. And then 60 minus 56 is 4. Okay, good. It stops. Bring down the 0. How many times does 8 go into 45? Now, we want it as a percentage, so all you got to do is multiply this by 100, or just think of it, move the decimal 2 places to the right, so that's going to be 37.5%. Letter A. Okay, here's another good one. So this is a trig problem, so if you don't real it can be a bit confusing if you haven't done trig, but here I'll show you the steps. So we have cosine of 3/2 times x plus 4 times, see how it's squished, that means multiplication, cosine raised to the 1/2 of x plus 4 plus, there's a plus, sine square of x plus 4 minus 1. So what you're going to do is use some kind of, first you got to simplify your exponent rule. So if you recall, when you're multiplying exponents, for example, x3 times x2, when you're multiplying exponents, you're really adding. So this is x5. So do the same concept with 3/2 times 1/2. So 3/2, when you're multiplying, you're adding. So what's 3/2 plus 1/2, which is 4/2, which is 2. So that's going to be a cosine square. And then this x plus 4 are the same, so you could just write it out once. And then we have plus sine square of x plus 4 minus 1. Now, you need to know your you need to know your identities. Cosine square, cosine square of x plus 4 plus sine square of x plus 4, that is related to your Pythagorean identity. That's related to cosine square of x plus sine square of x equals to 1. So did you know you can just replace this whole thing with 1 because it's a Pythagorean identity? And then you're still left with this minus 1, so bring that down. So 1 minus 1 is 0. Okay, letter D. Okay, 16 based on the image below, what is the value of x? So this is a little bit of a geometry problem. What is the relationship between these two angles? Yes, they are congruent. So these two angles, angle 2x plus 10 is congruent to angle x plus 25. Why are they congruent? Because they are vertical angles. And all vertical angles are congruent. So what we could set it up as, we could say 2x plus 10 equals to x plus 25, right? and continue solving for x. So I would have to subtract x from both sides. So 2x minus 1x is x plus 10. And then you have this 25, and then subtract 10 from both sides. And then 25 minus 10 is 15. They just want the value of x, not the angle, so it's going to be c. Okay. Question 7. It looks like we have some kind of word problem. So 17 says you launch a banana high up in the air and its altitude in meters is given as a function of time by the equation below. What's the maximum height of the banana? So when you're dealing with quadratic and whenever you're dealing with maximum or minimum, you know it's related to a vertex. The question is, do they want you to find the x value of the vertex or the y value of the vertex? So in order to figure that out, we need to know our variable. So what is our x? Our x is related to time, and our y is related to height. Okay, so if you graph that, the x-axis will be on time, and then the y-axis would be height, right? Okay. Then what you want to do is so we agree that we're going to find the y value of the vertex. So now what we're going to do, in order to find the y value of the vertex, you kind of have to find the x value of the vertex. And how do you find the x value of the vertex? You're going to have to use this equation, opposite of b over 2a. Let's figure out our a, b, and c. So my a is negative 9.8, my b is 40, and my c is 2. Okay, so opposite of b is negative 40, and then 2 times a is negative 9.8. So 2 times negative 9.8 is negative 19.6. You could, so 2 negatives becomes a positive, so it's really 40 over 19.6. Then what I would do is plug in this value into this. Let's see, let me put this in the calculator and let me get my answer, negative 9.8. 40. Okay, so when I put it in the calculator, I get 42.816. So it looks like it's C because they rounded to 2 decimals, so it's really 42.82. Okay, so yeah, that's how you would solve this vertex problem. Okay, so yeah, 42.82 would be the final height, the maximum height. Okay, question 8. Given an ordinary six-sided die, what is the probability that you'll roll a 1 or a 5? So we're dealing with probabilities, and how do you do probability? So you set it up as a fraction, and then on the bottom it's your total outcome, and then on the top is your desired outcome. So on our bottom, we're dealing with the dice, and it says it only has exactly 6 sides. So the total outcome would be 6. Now, what about the desired outcome? So imagine you have a dice, you have a 1 side, a 2 side, a 3 side, 4, 5, 6. And then what is the probability that you'll only hit 1 or 5? Well, here's 1, so that's one chance. And then 5, there's another, that's only another chance. So add these two. You have one chance of getting 1 and then another chance of getting 5. So that's a total of 2. So your probability is 2 out of 6, or it can be reduced by 2, which is 1/3. Okay. Okay, this one, what is the area of the triangle shown below? So we're dealing with triangles. This 15 centimeters goes all the way to the bottom. So it's not, it doesn't stop here. It actually goes all the way. And then the 20 is like your height. So what do we know about an area of a triangle? Area of a triangle is base times height all over 2. So my base is 15, right? This is my base. My height is 20, and then it's all over 2. So put that in the calculator, and what do you get? 15 times 20 divided by 2 is 150. Letter B. Okay, question 20. You reach into a bag containing 3 red marbles, 7 blue marbles. If you select the marbles at random and put them on the table after you've taken them out, so you're basically taking them out and you're not putting it back in, what is the probability your first two selections will be red marbles? Okay, so yes, you are taking some marbles out, so it would be a little bit different. So how you would do this is okay. So what I would do first contains 5. Yeah, so what I would do first, find the find the probability of a red marble before you take it out, right? So what do we have? We have a total of 3 reds, 7 blue. So that's a total of 7, 8, 8, 9, 10, total of 10, right? And then there's 3 red marbles, so it's 3 out of 10. So this would be the probability of getting a red marble on your first try. Then on the second try, remember, so you take that marble out, so now you'll have a possibility of only 9, right? Right, you only have a possibility of 9 because you took one marble out. Now you only have not 3 marbles of you don't have any more. You no longer have 3 red marbles because you took one out. You have only 2 red marbles. Okay. And then it says, what is the probability of your first 2 selections will be red marbles? So that's a big clue that you're going to multiply 2 different probabilities. So your first probability was 3/10, and then your second probability after taking out the marble was 2/9. So 3/10 times 2/9 is 115. So yeah, letter D.
Let's move on. So the next question says, what percent of 72 is 9? So when you're dealing with percentage problem, the word what, or even just any word problem, the word what means is your unknown, so we can call that x. And then percent, you can write percent as two ways. You can write it as over 100 or a decimal. I'm just going to write it out as over 100. The word of means multiplication, so I could put parentheses to represent multiplication and then times it by 72. The word is means equal, and then you have 9. Okay, so x over 100 times 72 is going to be 72x over 100 equals to 9 over 1. Okay, and then what you're going to do is cross multiply. So 1 times 72x is 72x, and then 100 times 9 is 900. And then go ahead and solve for x. So you're going to divide this by 72 and put it all together. 900 over 72 is 12.5. 12.5%. So letter D. Okay, good. Next one. So going to determine the angle theta given in the figure below. So here we have two triangles, and no, they're not congruent. But what can you tell about these two triangles? They are similar, and this is how I know they're similar. These two triangles are similar. And how do I know? Because in similar triangles, the angles are the same. Actually, they might be congruent as well. The reason why is because their side lengths are the same. So you see how this has one tick mark, and in this triangle, this is one tick mark? Well, that's the same. And then this has two tick marks, this has two tick marks, and then this has three, and then this has three. So they're either similar or congruent. So what that means is, um, in a similar or even a congruent triangle, right? In a similar or a congruent triangle, their angles are the same. They're congruent. Okay. So this angle 6.6, this is going to also be 6.6. This is a 90 because it has a box. That means this has a 90. And then what is this theta? So what is this unknown angle? So this unknown angle is the same thing as this unknown angle. So how do you find this unknown angle? So all you got to do is do 6.6 plus 90 plus that unknown theta angle. And we know that the sum of a triangle adds up to 180. So 6.6 plus 90 is 96.6 plus theta equals 180. And then subtract 96.6. So 180 minus 96.6 is 83.4. Okay, so that means that this angle is also congruent to this angle. So it would be the 83.4. Question 23. So question 23, we have a pie chart below describes the average usage of farmland across a specific region. If there are 200 farms based on the data, how many would we expect to be raising pumpkins or beets? So it's basically beets is 45%, and then pumpkin is 22%, right? And then you just, yeah, and then you just times that by 200. So what's 45 plus 22? 67. So they're basically saying 60, what is 67% of 200? So how do you convert 67% as a decimal? Move it two places to the left, so that's 0.67. Means 200, I mean multiplication, and that is going to be 134. That's it. So it's D. Question 24. A researcher is studying the relationship between the number of hours that students spend. A researcher is studying the relationship between the number of hours students spend studying and their exam scores. Which of the following would be the most appropriate representation of this data? Is it a histogram, a scatter plot, a histogram twice, and then a box plot? Hmm, what do you think? I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be scatter plot. I don't think histogram is probably the best. A scatter plot is, it would look something like this. Here's your X, here's your Y, number of hours. You could put on the X number of hours, and then on the Y, and spend, oh, and then their exam on the Y could be like exam scores, right? So yeah, I don't think histogram would be the most appropriate. I think scatter plot would be it because scatter plot looks like this. It's like a dot, dot, dot. Yeah, 25. A bag contains five red balls, four blue balls, three green balls. If two balls are randomly selected from the bag without replacement, meaning they're not putting, that means they're not being put back. What is the probability that both balls are blue? So what's another probability? So what would I do? So what I would do first is figure out how many total balls we have. So my total are we have five red, four blue, three green. That is going to be 12. A total of 12 balls, right? What is the probability of both balls? So let's try to figure out the probability before we took it out, before we removed the balls. So what is the probability that our ball? It's blue. So there originally said there was four blue, so it's 4 out of 12. And then it says if the two balls are randomly selected from the bag without replacement, what is the probability that both balls are blue? So that means after you did that try, after one ball is selected, um, there's going to be three blue balls.
Yeah. So after the second try, there's going to be only three blue ball, and then because that marble's not, I mean that ball's not being put it back, we're no longer going to be 12, it's going to be 11. And then you just multiply those two probabilities. So 4/12 times 3/11, you get the answer is 12. And then 12 times 11 is 132. And then that could be reduced by 12, so that would be 1/11. Okay. D. Okay, question 26. If the sales price if the sales price of a pair of sunglasses is $40 and then it was originally marked down 20% from its original price, what was the original price of the sunglasses? So it's obviously going to be more expensive than $40. So how I would set this up is I don't think I would do 20% of 40 and then just whatever that is added to 40. I think you could do that. But what you could do is set it up as an equation. So we could say X would be your original price. And then it said it was marked down by 20%. So what I would do is do 100%. Always start with 100%. Because it was marked down, that's really minus 20% equals to 40, right? So what's 100 minus 20? 80%. And then 80% as a decimal would be like 0.80. And then x equals to 40. And then solve for x, so you could divide this by 0.80. And you get 40 divided by 80 is 15. Oops. Sorry, that's my, yeah, 50. Letter D. Okay, let's move on. This one says find the volume of a rectangular prism below. So this is a not too bad. They're not asking for surface area because if you did have to find the surface area, you would have to find the area of everything. But they just want the volume. So what is a volume in general? It is basically length times width times height. And it tells everything we need. So it's a 3.5 by 8 by 10. So just multiply that out and you get 280 centimeters cubed. Letter B. Okay, 28, solve the proportion equation. We have x over 7 equals 3/8. So the good news is there's only two sides. You have a left and the right. So if you only have two sides, you could just cross multiply. So 8 times x is 8x, and then 7 times 3 is 21. And then go ahead and solve for x by dividing both sides by 8, and you get 21 over 8. I don't think that could be reduced, so I'm going to say A. Okay, so question 29. So question 29, it says, according to the graph below, what is the average number of daily cups of coffee consumed by this group of individuals? So we have some kind of bar graph, and on the x-axis, it's the cups per day, and then on the y-axis is the number of people. They're asking you, what is the average number of daily cups of coffee consumed? So when I hear the word average, all you got to do is add up all the sums divided by the number of sums, right? So what we could do is, so if you look at the x-axis, we have 1 cup per day, right? And then we're going to times it by how many? 4 plus, and then over here on the, then you have 2 cups per day. And then how many people were there? Or 2 cups per day? It would be 3 plus, and then 3 cups per day times by 2, and then 4 cups per day times by 1. And what else? Then we're going to do divided by total of 4. So when you put it all together, um, your answer should be 17 out of 10. So yeah, 17 out of 10, which looks like it's letter A. Okay, let's move on. So question 30, it's like a, what is it? What is it? Probability question. It says, which measure of spread is not affected by extreme values in a data set? And I think that would be, I don't think it's mean absolute deviation, right? I don't think, yeah, if you have extreme, that would definitely change it. Standard deviation, yes, that would definitely change it. Range, yes, it would definitely change. Interquartile range, um, like Q3, yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah, I think it is interquartile range. Yes, the IQR, yes, that doesn't change if you have a very low or high value. Okay, so it's going to be D. Okay, 31. What is the range of the bird egg data collected below? So here you have the x-axis and here you have the y-axis. On the x-axis, you have the tree location, and on the y, you have the number of bird eggs. So what do they mean by range? Range basically means all the y values. And if you look at what we got to do is, these are all y values. So we go from the smallest y value to the largest. So our smallest y value looks like it's at 0. And then you also have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's it. Yeah, so our range are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can also because there's nothing missing, you could just say just 0 to 6. That's the same thing as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to say B. Solve for X, solve for X given. So you have, yeah, this is just you could just cross multiply Y because there's only two sides. right? There's only two sides, so if you have two sides, you can just cross multiply. So go ahead and cross multiply. So it's going to be 4x equals to 5 times 3 is 15, and then solve for x by dividing both sides by 4. You get 15 out of 4. I don't think that can be reduced. There you go. Question 33. If we have 7 plus 5 times x equals to 2 times 7 minus 1, what y, what can be deduced? So what I would do is kind of simplify the left and the right. So on the left, you have 7 plus 5. That is the same thing as 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You have 12x. And then over here, you have 7 minus 1, which is 6, times it by y. And then 2 times 6 is 12y. And then you have 12x. Now, what can you say in order for this statement to be true? Should x be greater than 1? I don't think that'll work because if x is 1 and then, or x is 2, y is, or x could be 1 and then y must be greater than 1, like 2. That'll never make the statement true. Is it B? X cannot equals y? I don't think so because I think they have to be true. What about D? X equals to y. So let's think about it. If x equals 1, y must equal to 1. Is this going to make the statement true? I think so, right? 12 times 1 equals to 12 times 1, which is 12 equals to 12. Just true. So I'm going to say D. Okay, this one. 34 says solve for x. So here we have this triangle, or this isosceles triangle. We have an angle that's 30, and we have a side like a leg of 2. So because this is an isosceles, if this is 2, this also has to be 2 because see how this angle is facing this angle and then this angle is facing this side. They're the same, so that means. So what I would do next is solve for x. So how would we solve for x? We cannot use Pythagoras. We can't use like the SOHCAHTOA because it's not a right triangle, right? What could we use? So we know it's an isosceles, and we know it's not a right triangle. So the only thing I could think of is use log cosine. So you would use this rule, C equals square root of a squared plus b squared minus 2 times ab times cosine of c. So a is a leg, b is a leg, and then c is the hypotenuse, right? So a is 2, b is also 2, and c is the hypotenuse, which is, no, c is not the hypotenuse, c is the angle. So c would be 32 degrees. So put that in. It's going to be 2 squared plus 2 squared minus 2 times 2 times 2, and then cosine of 30. And cosine of 30 is, I believe it's 1/2. They don't see, as you can see, the choices are not decimal, so we can't just, what is a cosine of 30? No, I was wrong. Cosine of 30 is not, here's 30. It has an x coordinate of radical 3 over 2.
and a y coordinate 1/2. So cosine of 30 is radical 3 over 2. And when you do all the work, you're going to get this. You're going to get 2 square root of 2 minus square root of 3, right? Uh, 2 squares is 4, 2 squares is 4, negative 2 times 4, negative 4, so it's negative 8. And then cosine of 30 is radical 3 over 2. And that's going to be 4 plus 4 is 8. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4, square root of 3. And when you simplify it, you're gonna, you guess you could take out the 2. Yeah, and you're gonna get 2 square root of 2 minus square root of 3. Letter B, right? 2 times 2 square root of, yes. Question 35 says find the amplitude and period of the function y equals 3 sine 4x. So this is a sine graph. The amplitude is the absolute value of 3, which is positive 3. And then the period of a sine or even a cosine is 2 pi over b. And my b is the number in front of x, so it'd be 4. And I believe this could be reduced by 2, so that's going to be pi halves. Okay, so my amplitude is 3, and my period is pi halves. Amplitude is 3, and period is pi halves, so it looks like it's letter C. Okay, this one says x3 divided by negative x3 divided by x to the negative 4. So when you're dividing with the same base, you technically subtract the power. So it's 3 minus a minus 4. That's going to be 2 negatives becomes a positive. So 4 plus 3 is 5, 6, 7. Letter C. $37. The altitude A of a certain plane during an ascent is 70% of the distance D. The plane has traveled plus an additional 1,000 feet. Which of the following best represents the altitude of the plane as a linear equation in terms of D? So it's a linear equation, so it has to be in the form of y equals mx plus b, right? But instead of y, they use altitude. Do we know what our b is? Yes. The b's that are given distance, our b is 1,000. And do we know what our m is? Kind of. It's basically 70% of d. And then 70% as a decimal would be like 0.70. Means d. That's 1,000. So which one of that's going to be 0.70? It would be letter D. Don't be it's not B, it's letter C, right? Because if you FOIL this out, this is no longer be 1,000. Okay, so it's letter C. Okay. This one is also another linear equation. Transporting X pounds of materials by truck costs $3 per pound plus an additional 50. Which expression below represent the total cost to transport the pounds? So it's basically y equals mx plus b.
we have our B? Yes, it is addition 50. Do we have our M? Yes, it's $3 per pound, so really it's just 3x. So which one is that going to be? B. 39. Find the solution of the quadratic. So the good news, when they say find the solution, they mean the x-intercept. And the good news, it's already in factor form and they already set it up to 0. Some people could automatically see that it is 4 and negative 3 halves. So what they did was they kind of set each equation to 0, and then they solve for x. So over here, you would have to add 4 to both sides. You get 4, and then over here, you would have to subtract 3 halves, and you get negative 3 halves. So it would be 4 and negative 3 halves. There you go. Question 40, 3x plus 12 times this whole thing. So it's just boiling it out carefully and then try to see if you can collect that term. So let's start with the 3x. What's 3x times x squared times y? Well, you have a 3x, and then remember when you're multiplying with the same base, you add. So 2 plus 1 is 3, right? 2 plus 1 is 3, and then you have a y. Keep on going. What's 3x times negative 2xy? That's going to be negative 6x squared y. And then what's 3x times 4y? That is going to be 12xy. Now do the same thing with 12. So 12 times x squared is going to 12 times x squared y is 12x squared y. And then what's 12 times negative 2xy? That is negative 24xy. And then 12 times 4y is 48y. So I think that is going to be 3x cubed y plus, it's not the first one. Oh, it looks like we can collect like terms, so what can we let? So 3x cubed y, and then negative 6x squared y and positive 12x squared y is positive 6x squared y. And then 12xy and negative 24xy is going to be negative 12xy plus 48y. 3x cubed y plus 6x squared y minus 12xy plus 48y. There's your answer. Find the zeros. So basically, they're saying find the x-intercept. So set g of x to 0, and then try to factor as much as you can. So x minus 3 is already, can't do much. X squared minus 36, that's a perfect square. That can be factored out as x plus 6 and x minus 6. And then x plus 4 is the same. And then when you actually solve for x, one of my x is going to be positive 3. The other x is going to be positive 6 and negative 6. And then the other one is negative 4. So which one is that going to be? So 3, I think A, right? We have positive 3, positive 6, negative 6, and negative 4. That's the one. 42, what is the least common denominator of the monomials? So basically, what you're doing is with the letters, you pick the one with the highest. So let's what about our x's? So we have an x squared and x5. We're going to pick the x5. For the y's, you have a y5 and a y2, so you're going to pick a y5. For the z's, you're going to take a z cubed and a z7, so you're going to pick 7. And then for the constant, we have a 7 and a 3. Now, they're both prime. What you usually do is make a factor tree and then pick the one with the highest base. But because they're both prime and they're different bases, you multiply them out, so that's 21. So it's going to be 21 x5 y5 21. So it's 21 x5 y5 is z7, so C. This one solve for x. So yeah, what we're going to do is just use Pythagorean theorem because yeah, use Pythagorean theorem. So because it's a right triangle, so x squared plus b squared equals c squared. So it's going to be 2 squared plus 4 squared equals x squared. So 2 squared is 4, 4 squared is 16 equals x squared. So 4 plus 16 is 20 equals x squared, and then take the square root, square root. Now you can simplify square root of 20, right? It could be multiplied as 5 and 4. 5 is prime, 4 can be broken down as 2 and 2. And then each circle pairs of 2, so that 2 and 2 just becomes 2, put it outside, and then inside you're left with 5. Letter D. Okay, 44 on the unit circle, what are the x and y coordinates of 60 degrees? So this is something you must know. In a unit circle, 30, 40, you got to figure out where 60 degree is, and you got to figure out the coordinates. So, um, right. So in a 60 degrees, I think it's going to be 1/2 comma radical 3 over 2. Let me double check. Yes. So they're saying the they want all the coordinates. So it is going to be positive 1/2 and a y coordinate radical 3 over 2. This one? This one says, what is the cosine of theta? So they don't give us any like values of the side length. They just give us letters. And if you look at the answer, they're all letters. So what we're going to do is, because this is a right triangle, because it has a box symbol, you could use SOHCAHTOA. So cosine theta, according to the rule, it's adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, so locate where theta is. My adjacent side is B, and then my hypotenuse is A. So it's going to be letter B. That's it. This one, simplify the expression square root of 144 8 x to the 8th y to the 16. See, there's no number here. That means there's an invisible 2. So if you want, you can rewrite this as a power. So this is the same thing as 144 x8 y16, and then just raise it to the 1/2. So uh, what's 144 raised to the 1/2? That is 12. And then what's x8 raised to the 1/2? So as you recall, raising, you technically multiply the power. So it's really saying 8 times 1/2, which is 4. And then the y's, this is a 16. What's 16 raised to the 1/2? That's like 16 times 1/2, which is 8, not 4. So that would be 12x 4, what, D. Question 47, solve the equation, and they want to solve for y. So because we only have a left and the right, just cross multiply. So this is going to be 1 times that, that's 7x squared plus 32 plus y equals 2. And then this is going to be x times 7x minus 4. And then I guess clean this up. So 7x times x is 7x squared. Uh, x times -4 is -4x. Right here we have 7x squared plus 32 plus y. And then you go ahead and solve for y, so you're going to subtract 7x squared. And then subtract 32. And then the x cancels, and then maybe I'll put the x first, so -4x, and then minus 32. Yep, letter A. Not bad, right? This one is also an easy one. Convert pi over 5 into degrees. So if you have a radians and you want to convert it to degree, all you got to do is replace pi with 180. That's it. So replace that pi with 180, so it's going to be 180 over 5. And you get 36. Before I skipped 2, right? Let me do 2 or try to remember. Let's see. A researcher is studying the relationship between exercise habit and weight loss. What type of variable is weight loss in study? Let me think. Is it discrete or is it categorical? I think it will be, I think weight loss is the dependent variable. So it's like a y value. So a y value is technically a continuous variable. So I think it's going to be D. So weight loss is a dependent variable, meaning it's a y value, and that is going to be continuous. So I'm going to try D. Okay, let's see our results. Good, we got 100. So yeah, so I don't, yeah, this is TSI Math Practice Exam 1. So there should be 5 of these ones. So I'm going to stop here and then another video for another exam.